Okay, so we're gonna jump off here with Enzyme, a product that probably doesn't get enough love in terms of its role and responsibility. So a large quantity of lymph is water. The main filtration point for water in the body is the kidneys. So there is an intersection point rather between the lymphatic system and what goes on the kidneys. If there is a chronic infection or a chronic inflammatory signal, the kidneys are going to have to be filtering out a lot of stuff. So you can draw the connection between supporting the kidneys with Cranzyme to lymphatic support. Jason, I'll let you jump in.
Yeah, and just to take a quick step back, like when you and I had to pick the supplements for the lymphatic system, which is, definitely one of, our favorite topics. It's like you could probably make a case for every single one of them. So we just wanted to kind of pick the ones we think that are probably most likely to help for someone who's suffering from a lymph-related condition. And the Cranzyme, it's too bad Hope's not on the call. I think we've had at least 3 cases with people with lymphedema, at least stage 2, if not stage 3, get that cleared up just by using this product alone. And I think what would be really important for you guys to dig into is the SunCran research. We could have Derek eventually from Tile get on one of our calls, which we've talked about with the Jeffs, and really get into the science of SunCran. So I think a lot of you still view this as just a cranberry extract when it's much, much different. It has almost 0 sodium content, which is rare in a cranberry extract. And it's super clean, and you need very little amounts of it to really flush out the kidneys. So I guess I just kind of leave it there with the Cranzyme, but definitely my favorite, especially for lymphedema or just edema in general. Like pitting edema is another player.
Yeah, the concept of lymphedema or edema is an accumulation of fluid, which is always as a result of some inflammatory response and stagnation. And the kidney are the main organ to regulate water balance in the body. So anything that accumulates has to vacate. That just rhymes.
And a clinical pearl is if you have a doctor that either sells infrared heating pads or something like that, or they have an infrared sauna in their practice, is have the patient pop a couple of these before they use some infrared, because infrared's probably, in my mind, the single best support for the lymphatic system from a unit perspective.
Agreed. Light energy, my friend, light energy.
Right. Looking
at Cerezyme, similar context and similar concept to previously when it comes to supporting the cardiovascular system. Serratiopeptidase does a really good job at supporting the liquid medium. So in my mind, I'm starting to separate Seazyme as mucosal medium. Sierra peptidase is more liquid medium. And anytime there's necrotic, worn out proteins, those will be easy to accumulate within the lymphatic vessels. Cerezyme would be a really good opportunity to help work synergistically to reduce that lymphedema and to restore any potential dysfunction to the lymph nodes if they've been under some sort of infectious attack.
Exactly. Nailed it pretty much right on the head. It's one of my favorite supports also for the brush border sites, which if those guys are in trouble, there's just going to be more and more stuff that's just going to leak into the lymphatic system. I personally believe that systemic enzymes do cross into the lymph system just from clinical experience. I've seen a couple of research papers showing how they can help bring an antibiotic to a lymph node. So starting to get further and further into that being more of a fact than anything. But yeah, and then of course you guys should know by now the dose on this, even for someone with a lymphatic condition or just general support of the lymph system, would just be 2 at bed and 1 upon rising. And if someone's going to do like a vibration plate, you'll be able to tell if they have a gunked up lymph system because their legs, they'll be like, oh, my legs, they itch so much. Or even if they get in a really hot bath or infrared, this is another great adjunct to take if you're getting ready to do a vibrational plate or something like that.
It's interesting you say that. I had a friend text me yesterday. He's working with a new client who's younger guy, got some weight to lose. and he upped his exercise. He had him doing some infrared stuff, and he started getting acne around his legs, the back of his knees, and cystic pimples around his neck, which both areas, if you remember from the diagram, very concentrated quantities of lymph nodes. So supporting that process, especially when someone's starting to do some kind of weight loss or detox endeavor, because both of them stress the lymphatic system, making sure that you're able to support the body in that process with things like infrared light, high quality water, so there's enough liquid to flush things through the system.
Yeah, I had one like, man, this is like 4 or 5 years ago, and a good practitioner of mine who I just had got introduced the line to, and he put somebody on Cerazine along with some kind of anti-parasitic, and he sent me this picture. It was like, looked like they had a goiter on the side of their neck, and he's like freaking out. I'm kind of freaking out, but within 2 days it was completely gone, and the patient felt, you know, a trillion times better.
Isn't it incredible what the body can do to compensate when something's not working as fluidly as it should? HCl enzyme is an unlikely thing. Things that gunk up portal vein circulation, undigested proteins are probably the largest single factor which are going to drive an inflammatory response, an inability to regulate detoxification pathways, and ultimately stress the body, because the immune system is going to need to be recruited in order to deal with the threat. So Jason, you have some pretty cool stuff regarding HCl and undigested proteins.
Yeah, well, the reason I wanted to stick this one in here is also it's like such a inexpensive product, and it's a beautiful thing to use if someone wanted to do, like, let's say a 1-week lymphatic detox. So that would be like, if you wanted to do it the best way, it would be doing a juice fast without fiber, and then using the HCl at pretty high amounts systemically, as it's going to go and start to disinfect all the organs, and then also in a way where it breaks things down enough so the lymph system can handle the detox. The second best way to do it would be just do a fruitarian diet and stay away from your high carbonate or high carb fruits. So that's why I wanted to stick this guy in here. And of course, just the breakdown of the proteins and just the overall ability of HCl to support the lymph system through all the gunk that stop it before it gets there. So it's like giving the lymphatic system a break from just a typical diet that's, most people are low on hydrochloric acid, hands down, especially if they're over 30. I wouldn't use this with children, but if someone's 30 years and over, this would be a great thing to use, not only to support lymph on an ongoing basis, but to do like a cleanse.
Funny you say that. I'm in the process of doing a fast myself. I haven't eaten for, I don't know, over 24 hours now. I'm going to do a gallbladder flush soon. It's part of the process of doing just that, clearing out the gunk in your system, because the body will accumulate waste materials. Supplementally speaking, we're trying to aid in that process. But if you're building someone up to something that's going to be more of a formal detox or an expulsion, if you will, strategically using these products will actually help the process and alleviate the stresses off the body. We did talk about the gut. We can't not talk about the fact that dysbiosis can be a massive driver of what stresses the lymphatic system out. And we chose Theralac Pro. Why? It's the complete balance, right? So we know that Theralac Pro has the ability to raise and lower inflammatory cytokine production. It will help to displace pathogenic bacteria, likely more successively once there's been some kind of gut cleansing intervention. But ultimately, if we have dysbiosis, we have to understand that there are endotoxins. Those are toxins that are produced by the bacteria. There are exotoxins. There are toxins that are part of the bacterial structure. And these metabolites and these structural components are meant to stay in the gut. The more pathogens we have, the more gram-negative pathogens we have, theoretically, the greater toxic load potential exists in the digestive system of someone with dysbiosis. So if you're not helping to rebalance gut flora as a result of everything that causes poor gut function, digestion, food choices, stress, lack of sleep, everything we've spoken about, this is an area that someone may not go, oh, how does this support the lymphatic system? you're trying to minimize the potential negative consequences of a severely dysbiotic gut and what that could mean for circulatory health, because what gets into the bloodstream, it's got to be filtered, and lymphatic health, because what gets directly into the lymphatic system has to be filtered, but it's also got to do both of them, as we've discussed here. So Theralac Pro would be a really good adjunct or synergistic compound when someone knows that their client has issues with stagnant lymphatic flow. Then looking at sulforazine. Jason picks sulforazine in terms of its NRF2 boosting properties and sulfur containing properties. Anytime you have a sulfur component in an ingredient, think detoxification. So from a perspective of supporting systemic detoxification, upregulating antioxidant enzymes, things of that nature, sulforazine is probably the most powerful product we have. But Jason, I'll let you expand upon that.
Yeah, so well, like you'd kind of hit earlier in the presentation, also the importance of, if a lymph system is failing, then the adrenals are going to have a huge issue with hormonal signaling. And we know that sulforaphane can be a huge help there. So this would be something you'd probably use with someone who's further down the line with a lymphatic issue, because obviously there's a detoxification problem going on. And again, just remember, when like this, for whatever reason, it's just really hard to get through to people's heads the differences of a sulforaphane product. There's true sulforaphane, there's myrosinase with glucoraphanin, which is your number 2, and then there's your basic product with just glucoraphanin, expecting the patient to provide the myrosinase. This is the real deal. It's stable sulforaphane, which we originally wanted but could not find outside of one company in France that was producing it. But now we're able to get the actual real deal. So the dosage has gone down in almost all the doctors that I work with. Yeah, just leave it at that.
That's a good point.
Yeah, right.
The concept of giving everyone sulforaphane or sulforazine initially might not be a good strategy, because sometimes the effect or the downstream effect of what sulforazine promotes in someone's body, they're not ready for. They could be free-form amino acids, they may be low in antioxidants. If their channels of detoxification are not open, maybe your channel of detoxification is the lymphatic system. Giving them sulforaphane or sulforazine too early could actually hurt their physiology. So go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I have had a few cases, even with one of our old reps. She's like, every time I give someone the new one, they get like edema. And I'm like, well, probably stop putting your new patients on sulforazine right away, because she is someone that attracts very ill people. I'm like, let's work on the basics first, then go there, and then we can start, doing detoxification when they're ready.
Yeah, does everyone remember BEDMAS from math, the order of operations, brackets, exponents, all that kind of stuff? There's kind of a BEDMAS to the body. You make the gut flow, you open the channels of detoxification, the organs of detoxification, then you stress them. If someone's not going to the washroom on a regular basis, if they're not moving their bowels, if they're chronically dehydrated, if they're nutritionally deficient, if they don't sweat, if they don't move, giving someone sulforazine can actually be the worst thing to increase the toxic burden that's liberated in their body that cannot get out of the body. The body will package away in different tissues, specifically fat cells and different organs. If you liberate stuff from storage, you got to be able to throw it out. Otherwise, you're just creating junk. You're scattering your junk that's been packed away in a closet that you haven't opened in years.
Right.
It's an important concept when it comes to working with people and relaying that to clinicians, which Jason and I would be more than happy to talk about if anyone wants to jump on a call about that specific concept.
But yeah, make sure you're getting the patient at least digesting their food before you pump them with sulforazine, unless they've been taking digestive enzymes already.
And the final stop on today's tour is we're looking at Seazyme, and I had to throw Seazyme in just because it's a nice balance to liquid medium, Cerezyme, mucosal medium, Seazyme. So anywhere there's a mucosal layer, there's a lot of immune activity, because one of the main jobs of a mucosal barrier is it traps foreign particles for the immune system and specifically the immune cells to interact with and ultimately break down. The lymphatic system will always try to pick up waste material and excessive fluid and deliver various things where there is a mucosal barrier. So if someone has a chronically inflamed respiratory lining, digestive lining, anything, even oral mucosa, Seazyme would be a really good synergist to make sure that it's playing its role to help the lymphatic system operate more effectively, providing the entire system is flowing.
Yeah, and well, like, what would be one of the hardest things for the, you know, the lymphatic system to detoxify? Mucus, and what is one of the favorite places for, you know, antigens to hide, parasites in mucus. So if we can support the body with mucus, we're going to have the lymphatic system, you know, have a larger strain off of itself and be able to, you know, go through and detoxify the antigens through the immune system, which we you know, prefer. This is also like a really great product for wet spleen. I work with tons of acupuncturists, and they just swoon about this for wet spleen.
Because if someone has a dysfunctional spleen, they're not able to break down and resynthesize white and red blood cells, and then the filtration capacities of the lymphatic system take a major hit because the thymus is not designed to filter and detoxify. The thymus is what educates the immune cells. So innate lymphocytes become, it's like they go off to boarding school. They get their PhDs or whatever in the thymus, and now we can distinguish between T helper cells, T effector cells, and T regulatory cells.